I want to welcome you to this lecture, which is supposed to be lesson 5 of Bio 192. And last week, we started our discussion on the animals kingdom, and we look at the Purifera as the most simplest form of animals in the animals kingdom. So this lesson is about the phylum Cnidaria. That is, we are going to consider two phyla today in this lesson. So, but we are starting with the phylum Cnidaria. The Cnidarians, in fact, are simple multicellular and they are marine animals. And they show a tissue-great organization. That is, they are the first group of animals to show tissue organization. So the members of this phylum are invertebrate marine animals. And they have their mouth surrounded by what we call tentacles, and what the tentacles is all about in the marine habitat is to direct their food particles into the mouth. So that is the function of the tentacles that are found that surround the mouth of the members of the Cnidaria. The members also have simple structures, and their body look like sac. So they have sac-like bodies. And the phylum, the members of the phylum include the jellyfish, the anemones, the corals, and the hydroids. These are the typical members of the phylum Cnidaria. They are mostly found in marine, and that's why we call them marine animals. So the members of Cnidaria are marine animals. Then the features that distinguish them, or the peculiar features of this phylum, is that they have two systems. The tissue systems are organized into two types. That is one of the major diagnostic features of the phylum Cnidaria. And then the two types are the gastrodermis and the epidermis. These are the two tissue systems that are found in the phylum Cnidaria. They also have a layer of what we call mesoglia. And this mesoglia is a protein that is found between the tissues of the Cnidaria. They have radial symmetry. Their body is radially symmetrical. And their nerve cells are organized in what we call a loose nerve net. That is their nerve cells. And they have what we call cnidocytes. And then this cnidocyte is a nettle cell which contains the nematode. And then one of the unique features of the Cnidaria is the presence of highly specialized stingy cells. We call it stingy cells in their body. And then these stingy cells are called nematocysts. And then this is a typical example of members of Cnidaria, Hydra. The Hydra is an example of Cnidaria. Then this is a picture of a Hydra that is undergoing budding. And then you can see the labeling. We have the parent Hydra, and then a bud is growing out of the parent. And that is what you see as bud there. Then the morphology of Cnidaria, the members of that. The phylum has two body forms. And the two body forms are, one, polyp. An example is Hydra that I've just shown. Then we have the medusa. An example of this medusa is Obelia. So these are the two body forms that are found in the Cnidaria. The polyp is a sessile flower-like Cnidaria. And when we say an animal or an organism is sessile, it does not move from place to place. So it appears like a flower. And a typical example of that is Hydra. Hydra is an example of a polyp. Then the medusa type is a motile type. It's not sessile, like in the case of the polyp. So, and they look like a bird. So they are bell-shaped in structure. An example is that of Obelia. So this is the structure of Obelia medusa. And this Obelia medusa has a body type that look like bell, as I've said earlier on. So it is bell-shaped in structure. You can see the structure, you can see the labeling. We have the nidocyte battery, we have the tentacles, we have the statocyte cyst, and some other structures that are labeled in this Obelia. Then to classify cnidarians into the various groups, and we base this the classification of cnidaria on the two body forms that we have already mentioned, the polyps and the medusa. So it is on the basis of these two body forms that are used to classify the phylum Cnidaria. And based on the body forms, they are classified into three main classes. And the three classes are the Hydrozoa, where the Hydra belongs to. We have the Cyphozoa, and that is the group of jellyfish. And then we have the Anthozoa. And these Anthozoa include the she anemones. Then most of the corals or polyps are members of this Anthozoa. Then, what are the features that enable them to adapt in the marine habitat? So, and basically, they have hydrostatic skeleton, and it is this hydrostatic skeleton that allows them to move quickly and easily through the water, since they are found in the aquatic environment, particularly the marine habitat. So, it is this hydrostatic skeleton that enables them to move fast in the water. And they also have what we call nematocysts, or the nematocytes, which they also use to stun or kill, or they use it to paralyze their prey before they are consumed. So the nematocytes are also used to protect themselves from any external invasion. And they have tentacles also, which they use to drag their prey into the mouth alive. So their tentacles also used for feeding. So then we now also look at the phylum Platyhelminths, and this phylum include the flatworms. We call them the flatworms. And the Platyhelminths is made up of acylomate metazoans. So that is, they do not have holes in between the cells, and their tissues have been organized into organs. They have organs. The Cnidaria do not have tissue organs at all. So, but this particular phylum, the Platyhelminths, they have organs. Their tissue are organized into organs. So, and some of them may be parasite, or they may be free living. So that is, they are parasitic or they are free living organisms. So the parasitic members are the flukes and the tapeworms. They are the parasitic members of these Platyhelminths. And then the free living members are, or is the Planaria. Planaria is a free living, is not parasitic. And the group, they have dorsoventrally compressed body, and that's what makes them to be flat. That is, they have flat body. So the Platyhelminths are hermaphroditic. That is, they bear the both sexes of male and female. So, and we refer to them as hermaphrodite. So they are hermaphroditic in nature. And those that are parasitic, they often have very complex reproductive structures and life cycle. Then, what are the features that we use to recognize the Platyhelminths? And they are flatworms, and they have a dorsoventrally compressed and bilaterally symmetrical body. So they are dorsoventrally compressed, and their symmetry is bilateral in nature. And they are the lowest triploblastic acylomate metazoans. This group are the lowest triploblastic triploblastic and coelomate. But they are advanced over coelenterate because their tissues are organized into organs. They do not have spaces in between their tissues. So they have organs in their system. They do not have xylem. And the mesoderm is the one that forms a type of connective tissue that is called parenchyma. That's why there's no space in between the tissues. So, and that's why we say they do not have xylem. So, it is this parenchyma that feed the body spaces between the ectoderm and the endoderm, so that there's no xylem or spaces in between the tissues. And because of that, they are called acoelomate animals. That is, those animals that do not have spaces in their tissues. The excretory system has one or two canals, and these canals have branches, and these branches end in structure that we call the phloem cells. So the canals have no internal opening, but they open to the exterior. So, and it could be for elimination of excess water or any other material. So they do not have circulatory and respiratory system. So these platyhelminths do not have circulatory or respiratory system, despite the fact that they have their tissues are organized into organs. So the nervous system consists of a network, and it has what we call ganglia at the anterior end, that is toward the head, and this serves as a brain. The reproductive organs are well developed in platyhelminths, and most of the flatworms, as I have said, are hermaphrodites. That is, they bear the both sexes. And there are three classes in the phylum Platyhelminths. So when we classify them, there are three main classes that are recognized under the phylum. And the three classes are the Tubellaria, we have Trematoda, and we have the Cestoda. Then we look at the class Tubellaria. In this class, most members are free-living flatworms. That is, there are no parasitic members. Then some of the members are ectocommensals and endocommensals. You know, I'm sure you understand when we say commensalism. So commensalism is a type of association between two organisms where one is no one is losing. So one may be benefiting from it, from the association. So then there are some that are parasitic with simple life cycle, but very few of them. So very few are parasitic, and their life cycle is very simple. We have typical examples of the class Tubellaria, such as Planaria, Ectoplana. Then the class Trematoda, which is the second class. The members, they live as an ectoparasite or endoparasitic form. That is, they can live outside the body of their host, or they could live inside the body of their host. So, and we normally call them flukes. They are normally called flukes or commonly called flukes. And the body shape is usually leaf-like and dorsoventrally flattened. So their body appears like a leaf and flattened at both sides. These Cestoda have a well-developed suckers and cuticle on their body. So their suckers are well developed, and what are suckers all about is for sucking of the blood or nutrient from their host. So their life history may be simple or could be complicated. So we have a typical example as the fasciola, the fluke. The liver fluke is a typical example of this class. Then the class Cestoda. The members are endoparasites, and then they are usually found in the intestine of the vertebrates. So we commonly call them tapeworms. Of course, it's a common name that if we have not expressed it, we have not seen it. We have heard about tapeworm as one of the worms in the body of animals. So, and then their bodies is without epidermis and cilia. They do not have cilia, but their body is covered with corticles. And then this corticles is a protective structure in some of these worms. The life cycle of Cestoda is complicated, and it's usually involving two or more hosts. That is, before they complete their life cycle, there are two hosts that are involved. So their embryos possess hooks, and it is this hook that they use to attach to the body of their host, either internal. So the example is Taenia. It's a typical example of the class Cestoda. So they have hooks. You can see the structure of Taenia. It has suckers. You can see it has hooks. The hooks is the one it's used to attach to the intestine of the host. They have scolex, they have neck, and then we have what we call proglottides, and these are the reproductive segments of the Taenia. Then the parasitic adaptation of Taenia. Their shape is one of the adaptation because their body is flattened, and as I've said, they look like leaf or they look like ribbon. So this structure enable them to adapt to the environment, and the body is structured so that they can fit into any space that is available to them in the host. They do not have cilia, that is an organ of locomotion, so they do not have cilia on them. Their body is covered with several layers of corticals, and it is this cortical that protect them from the host enzymes. As I've mentioned before, that the role of cortical is protection. So the cortical prevent them from the disintegration by the enzymes of the host. So they possess suckers and hooks, and these are the material that keep them attached to their host. So there is a reduction in the trophic organs of the Taenia. In the cestode generally, the mouth and the alimentary canal have disappeared in these cestodes. So the mouth and the alimentary canal have disappeared in them, and they do not have any locomotory organs, no organs of locomotion. So some parasites have an additional multiplicative stage at some point in their life cycle. So they can multiply at one point or the other during their life cycle. They do not have locomotory organs, and they produce a lot of eggs. That is one of the features that enable them to adapt. So it is this production of numerous eggs that enhance their survival. So the eggs have thick cells, and it is this cell that protect them and prevent desiccation, that is losing of water from the eggs. So those that are parasites have one or more intermediate hosts. So it is the intermediate host that act as a transmitting agent to new final host. So we are going to still see this double host that they must pass through before they can infect, cause havoc. So then we look at the liver fluke. Fasciola hepatica is a liver fluke. We refer to it as a common fluke, and it is a parasitic flatworm which inhabit the liver and the bile passage of vertebrates. Particular such vertebrates include cattle, sheep, goat, rabbit, dog, pig, and even man. So man, higher animals are the host of liver fluke, and they inhabit the liver and the bile in these animals. The habitat of Fasciola hepatica, and as I've said, they are found in the liver of sheep, and it is found as an endoparasite in the bile passage of sheep. The parasite need two hosts to complete its life cycle. So there are two different hosts that the parasite use before it can complete its life cycle. And such hosts includes, as I mentioned before, sheep. Then the first set of hosts are sheep, goat, horse, and so on. And then the second one, they will complete their life cycle in the gastropod or mollusk, that is the snail. And that's why those of us that consume snail, we need to boil the snail very well. Otherwise, we could consume parasites, intestinal parasites such as the Phaseolus hepatica. Then the tapeworm, which we refer to as Taenia solium. And then the primary host of Taenia is man. And then it has its secondary host as a pig. And when we look at the structure, the tapeworm is very long. It is about 3 meters long. And it is flat and usually tapers toward the anterior end, that is toward the head. The body has a small head that we call the scolex. And it has also a narrow neck and a body consisting of flat segments. And we call those segments proglottides. The segments in them are called proglottides. And the segment develop behind the neck and they enlarge and mature toward the posterior end. So it means the young segments are found toward the head, while the older ones are found toward the posterior end, that is the end, toward the tail. So the head has hooks and they have 4 suckers by which it attaches itself to the intestinal wall of their host. Then what are the parasitic adaptations of tapeworm? They have the following adaptive features which enable them to live successfully in their host. 1, they have attachment devices. And then the attachment devices are hooks and suckers which are found on the head, the scolex. Then these structures prevent its removal from the host gut by peristalsis. So it means when they attach themselves to the host, it is very difficult for them to be removed because of the presence of the hook and suckers. Number 2, they use a secondary host to ensure transmission from host to host. As we have said, they pass through 2 hosts before they complete their life cycle. One host is primary and the other one is secondary. And they will not complete their life cycle unless they pass through these 2 hosts. Number 3, they usually lay many eggs. And these numerous eggs ensure that some eggs will reach the secondary host. So that is the reason why they produce so many eggs. At least some will reach the final host. And this production of numerous eggs ensures survival of tapeworm. And number 4, they are hermaphrodites. They have hermaprophyte segment which ensure reproduction. And this segment or this hermaphrodite segment is because of the fact that only one tapeworm will live in one host. So, and they need to reproduce. So they bear both sexes, male and female. So, and that's why we say they are hermaphrodites. So, because the only one tapeworm will live in one host. Number 5, the outer layer of their body protect the worm from the digestive action of the host intestinal enzymes. So the body layers have some protection which will prevent them from the eroding enzymes of the host. Number 6, the ability to respire anaerobically, that is, they can expire or respire, or they can carry out respiration in the absence of oxygen. So, and of course, since they live in the gut, they are usually low oxygen concentration in the gut. So, and they can carry out their activities in the absence of oxygen. Number 7, their body is flattened with the presence of surface cytoplasmic projection. So this is one of the features that adapt them to the host or the environment where they live. The cytoplasmic projection that are found in the tapeworm are called microtrichs. And it is this microtrichs that increase the surface area for absorption of food from the host. So this is the structures that enable the tapeworm to live successfully in their host. So then we will stop here for this lecture, and we are going to have activities. 2 activities we are going to have here, and one is that what do you understand by tissue grade organization in the phylum Cnidaria? Remember, we said they are the first group of animals that their tissue have grade organization. So what do you understand by that grade organization? Then secondly, you should mention some features that adapt flatworm for parasitic mode of life. Flatworm, in fact, we have just mentioned some. So what are those features that adapt them for their parasitic mode of life? So these are the 2 activities we are going to carry out. Please endeavor to do these activities. They will help you. So it's just to refresh you. So on the basis of the lecture you are listening to, from there now you should be able to attempt these activities. Thank you very much.